The presidential debates are over and the elections are less than 2 weeks away. We have complete coverage of the debates and its effect on voters.
And the World Series is on. The San Francisco Giants and the Detroit Tigers are going head-to-head for the win.
Plus, we'll tell you about a fun pumpkin patch you can visit here in San Diego to get you ready for Halloween.
And Hurricane Sandy is heading up to the northeast. I'll have my complete weather forecast. Newscene starts right now.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Newscene. I'm Briazzi.
And I'm Justin Watson. Thanks for joining us.
Well, coming up in the first hour, we have First Lady Michelle. Coming up at the top of the newscast, we have First Lady Michelle Obama, who was in town today for a fundraising breakfast. The event was held in La Jolla at the home of Joanne and Erwin Jacobs, who are local philanthropists. The minimum contribution to attend the breakfast was $1,000. The Jacobs family is one of the top donors to the Obama campaign, donating over $2 million so far. This will be the First Lady's third visit to San Diego since her husband was elected president.
The elections are around the corner, and that means it's time for some last-minute campaigning. Governor Jerry Brown stopped in San Diego Tuesday, urging voters to pass Proposition 30, which would increase taxes to generate funds for public schools. Just this week, public colleges took a hit, learning of a 4.8% tuition hike. On average, students will pay around $22,000, a record high. Governor Brown stresses the importance of Prop 30. He says the temporary tax increase would generate a surplus of $6 billion, which would be used to fund public education.
A popular online news source has revised its policy around political ads. The change came to light when the San Diego Gay and Lesbian News refused a third-party political ad. The reason? It included an endorsement for mayoral candidate Bob Filner. SDGLN is published by Hale Media. The owner, Jonathan Hale, is a longtime partner of mayoral candidate Carl DeMaio. Hale says Filner falsely accused him of organizing a controversial water gun fight in Balboa Park last summer, and that the ban will remain in place until Filner issues an apology.
Failure to fact check is causing some controversy in San Diego's mayoral race. The county registrar's office sent the county's ballot to the printer with an erroneous write-in option under the mayor's section. Bob Filner expressed his concern as one of the candidates for mayor in a very tight race.
I hope it doesn't mess up the election, but it's very confusing, and the registrar should not have allowed this to occur, and they've got to figure out a way to make up for it with a public education campaign.
It's been reported by KPBS.org. The county registrar of voters, Deborah Sealer, doesn't think the mistake will cause too much trouble because there are no current write-in campaigns happening.
Well, there's growing concern tonight over the integrity of voting machines in two swing states. Votes in Ohio and Colorado will be calculated by machines provided by Hart InterCivic. A key investor in the Hart InterCivic is HIG Capital. 7 directors of the private investment firm are former employees of Bain Capital, a consulting company for which Romney was once CEO. Hart InterCivic says HIG Capital is an investor, but has nothing to do with its management.
The matters of the world were the focus of the third and final presidential debate. President Obama and Republican presidential hopeful Mitt Romney fielded questions on foreign policy. Charlie Viramontes has the story.
It was a foreign policy showdown. The third presidential debate may not have been as heated as the previous meeting, but there was plenty to argue about. First up, Libya. But the candidates sped past the subject into broader Middle East policy, and the president did not hold back.
Your strategy previously has been one that has been all over the map and is not designed to keep Americans safe or to build on the opportunities that exist in the Middle East.
Attacking me is not talking about how we're going to deal with the challenges that exist in the Middle East.
The conversation moved back to the economy of the United States.
Making sure that we're bringing manufacturing back to our shores so that we're creating jobs here, as we've done with the auto industry, not rewarding companies that are shipping jobs overseas.
I know what it takes to create 12 million new jobs and rising take-home pay. And what we've seen over the last 4 years is something I don't want to see over the next 4 years.
They traded barbs on the Iraq War and Iran.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. I made that clear when I came into office. We then organized the strongest coalition and the strongest sanctions against Iran in history, and it is crippling their economy.
Crippling sanctions were number one, and they do work. You're seeing it right now in the economy. It's absolutely the right thing to do to have crippling sanctions. I'd have put them in place earlier, but it's good that we have them.
Now the candidates get back on the trail and make a push for key battleground states. With less than 2 weeks before Election Day, both candidates are trying to get as much support as they can. I'm Charlie Veramontes, Newscene.
The next and final showdown comes November 6th when voters go to the polls. The presidential debates are geared to sway U.S. voters. Some say they now know who they'll vote for. Others still are on the fence.
Phoebe O is here with more on how people are reacting now that Election Day is inching closer. Phoebe?
Yeah, Bree, Justin, it's turned out to be a really tight race. It looks like President Obama has a slight edge over Mitt Romney. According to national polls, nearly half the people who tuned into the debate say the president defeated Romney. Newscene spoke to some students on campus to see if the debates had any effect on how they would vote this election.
The presidential debate is heating up, and candidates are being pressed to tell voters what their plans are for America. President Obama was criticized for his poor performance during the first debate, but in the next two, the president came off more aggressive and turned the tables on Romney.
Our Navy is smaller now than any time since 1917. The Navy said they needed 313 ships to carry out their mission. We're now down to 285.
I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets.
Both candidates delivered their best performances, hoping to sway voters.
I was planning on voting for Mitt Romney. I'm not sure still yet, but I might even go independent. I'm not sure.
A lot of people are very much unaware of what's going on in our world, in our country, politics, and it should be an interesting one. My vote's for Obama.
According to a national poll, it appears the debate didn't have much effect on voters. About 50% of people say it didn't change their mind. 25% of people say they are likely to vote for Romney.
I'm not just optimistic about winning, I'm more optimistic about the future for America.
The other 25% says they want to see the president reelected.
I can't tell you who I'm voting for. It's a secret ballot. But Michelle says she voted for me.
Well, both candidates had really busy campaign schedules as Election Day gets closer. Mitt Romney was in Iowa today for a speech, and then he flew to Ohio for a joint rally with running mate Paul Ryan. Meantime, the President Obama was in Washington, D.C., taking part in 10 interviews. Yesterday, he made a pit stop in his hometown of Chicago to cast his ballot early. And he showed up to a polling place actually near his home, and they asked him for his ID.
Wow, should be interesting to see how voters turn out.
Sounds like nobody gets special treatment.
Yeah, not at all.
Thanks, Phoebe.
All right. Coming up after the break, a pre-Halloween storm is shaping up to hit the East Coast.
We have more on this after the break.
But it would be safe to keep your distance until the secret that will make you smile.